It's the mid-1800s. A small cotton town in northern Alabama is going out of business. Farming, milling, barely connected to the rest of the country. Nobody outside of the state has even heard of it. Nobody outside of the county even particularly cares about it. It has no strategic value, no natural resources worth fighting over, and no reason to ever be anything other than what it already is: quiet, agricultural, and forgettable. But in the century to come, two foreign powers on the other side of the world will make a series of decisions that have absolutely nothing to do with this town, and those decisions will accidentally transform it into one of the most economically powerful cities in the United States. Before the skyscrapers or the rockets or the defense contracts, Huntsville was literally known as the watercress capital of the world. Then, when the Great Depression hit, like most of rural America, Huntsville began to suffocate. But geography had dealt the city a hidden card: the Tennessee River. In an attempt to revitalize the economy, the federal government created the Tennessee Valley Authority in Huntsville, along with many similar projects across the entire country. Hydroelectric dams were built all across the Tennessee River to generate cheap, reliable energy. And this didn't just give a temporary reprieve from the Depression by creating a few hundred jobs. These dams and this electricity would prove vital to Huntsville's future. When the United States entered World War II, the military faced an urgent, grim problem. They needed isolated, inland, secure locations to manufacture chemical weapons and artillery shells. Coastal cities were vulnerable to submarine attacks. They needed somewhere remote, somewhere with cheap power, and somewhere with enough land to keep an explosion from being catastrophic. They looked at a map. They found Huntsville. The Army purchased over 30,000 acres of farmland just south of the city limits and established the Redstone Ordnance Plan. Almost overnight, this small cotton town was flooded with wartime jobs, federal money, and a sense of national pride it had never experienced before. Huntsville was saved. For the first time. But don't get it wrong, this was no benevolent act, but a necessary act. America's hand was forced, and this forgotten cotton town happened to be in the right place at the right moment. And unfortunately, this stroke of luck would come to an end. When the war ended, the chemical manufacturing stopped, contracts dried up, thousands of jobs simply vanished. The massive ordnance plant sat largely abandoned, a ghost of wartime urgency fading in the Alabama heat. Once again, it seemed like Huntsville was going to be forgotten. A brief footnote in history, now returning to its slow agricultural obscurity. The city was dying for the second time. But in the aftermath of World War II, the United States executed one of its most consequential classified intelligence programs in American history, Operation Paperclip. The goal was to recruit elite German scientists and engineers, the one who had spent the war developing terrifying weapons for the Nazi regime before the Soviet Union could capture them first. It was a race conducted in the rubble of destroyed Europe, and the stakes were nothing less than the future balance of global power. The most valuable asset in the entire Paperclip program was a brilliant, ambitious aerospace engineer named Wernher von Braun. He had developed the V-2 rocket, which was the world's first long-range guided ballistic missile, and the U.S. Army needed a place to put him to work, along with over 100 of his fellow German scientists and engineers. They needed a massive, secure, and essentially empty space. They looked on that same map, and there they found that abandoned chemical manufacturing plant sitting on 30,000 acres of empty space. And in 1950, the rocket scientists came to Huntsville. Nobody meant to build a city, they meant to build a missile. But this single, almost administrative decision permanently rewired Huntsville's DNA much deeper than the previous one ever could. Hundreds of millions of federal dollars flooded into the Tennessee Valley. The Army established the Redstone Arsenal as the center of its entire ballistic missile development program. By 1960, the civilian space program was born, and NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center was officially opened on the same enormous campus. Huntsville had become the literal engine room of the American space race. The massive Saturn V rockets that carried the Apollo 11 astronauts to the lunar surface, they were not designed in Washington, D.C. They were not built in Houston. They were engineers on drafting tables by people living in quiet, brick ranch houses in Alabama. During the 1960s, the population of Huntsville exploded. The federal government recruited the best and brightest engineers, mathematicians, and physicists from across the country. They arrived in the Deep South and never left. Where I had planted a seed, in over 70 years, it has grown into a forest. The Apollo program eventually ended. NASA's budget was slashed, and by the mid-1970s, Huntsville faced what looked like a third existential crisis. But this time, the city didn't wait to be saved. It saved itself. The engineering workforce and local leadership shifted their focus from deep space exploration to national defense. And over the following decades, what began as a rocket testing campus transformed into something arguably more permanent, the nervous system of the entire United States military. The Redstone Arsenal today is not just a base. It's the headquarters for the Army Materiel Command, the Missile Defense Agency, and the Aviation and Missile Command. Then, the FBI, running out of space and money in an expensive Washington, D.C., made a historic decision. They established a secondary headquarters in Huntsville and poured over $1 billion into state-of-the-art facilities on the arsenal, permanently relocating thousands of jobs in cybersecurity, counterterrorism, and hazardous device training down to Alabama. The city that war saved twice has now made itself indispensable to the permanent machinery of American national security. It would never need saving again. And things could get even better for the people of Huntsville. Where massive federal agencies go, private defense contractors must follow. Directly adjacent to the Redstone Arsenal sits Cummings Research Park, 3,800 acres of manicured corporate campuses that make up the second largest resource park in the entire United States and the fourth in the entire world. Blue Origin, for example, has built a massive rocket engine manufacturing plant right here in the city. For the average worker, this creates a job market unlike anything else in America. These are not fragile consumer tech startups burning through venture capital on a 24-month clock. These companies operate on decade-long federal defense contracts. They build missile defense shields, helicopter avionics, and deep space hardware. The federal defense budget almost never shrinks, even when the rest of the economy does. The jobs this creates are so insulated from normal economic cycles that they almost feel surreal to anyone who has come from the volatility of the coastal tech sector. That stability is a direct inheritance of decisions made by people who were never thinking about Huntsville at all. Nazi Germany built a rocket program to win a war. It lost the war, but the rocket program survived and ended up in Alabama. The Soviet Union started a Cold War to project global dominance. It never achieved that dominance, but the fear it created pumped billions of federal dollars into a forgotten southern town, and that money never stopped coming. America's enemies weren't trying to build Huntsville. They weren't thinking about Huntsville, they were pursuing their own ambitions on the other side of the world. And the side effects of their failures accidentally created one of the nicest and most modern cities in the entire country. That's the city's genius. Not that it created its own destiny, but they recognized an opportunity and refused to waste it. Every time the federal money arrived, Huntsville built something permanent with it. Institutions, infrastructure, a multi-generational engineering culture that became self-sustaining. Today, Huntsville represents something increasingly rare in America, a city built on tangible things, physical engineering, long-term planning, unshakable stability. It proves that the most secure economic futures are not always found in the loudest, most expensive cities. Sometimes they're found in the places that quietly absorb a miracle, refuse to waste it, and get to work. It may not have the ocean view of San Francisco, it may not have the hype of New York, but for hundreds of thousands of people, the Rocket City offers something that the coast stopped offering a long time ago. A place where your education actually pays off, when your career is actually secure, and where you can finally actually afford to put down roots. Built accidentally by the people who are supposed to be America's enemies. If you found this deep dive into Huntsville and American history interesting, hit the like button to help my channel grow. You can also click the subscribe button to stay up to date with all my newest videos. See you in the next one.